Hello, I am your host Angelina and you are listening to V.I.P podcast, where we talk about very important people, ponies and pooches. It's been a while since I've actually been able to sit down and record a podcast for you all, so I do apologise for that. Anyways, when I finally got my act together, I started going over some ideas and, I was trying to find a nice topic for me to do, which I thought it would be a good idea for you to get to know a little bit about me. So I want to talk about my own animals, because they are my life, as it is, and the relationships I have with them. So also in this episode, I would like to cover what I believe to be a good bond/relationship with your dog and horse. I love mine to pieces. I'm sure you'll think they're very spoilt rotten, because they practically are. But some people, obviously, if you have an animal, you have a pet, whereas I have animals and they're my fur children, or fur babies as some people refer to them as. That is what they are to me. They are part of the family. Now, before I begin telling you about my animals, I will say I could just talk all day long, talk your ear off about them, because I'm going to try and make it fairly brief, but yeah, they're spoilt rotten and they're very special to me. So I'm sure you've heard me refer to them in other episodes before, but let's just crack on. So I have 5 horses and 2/3 dogs. One dog is my partner's, but I have 2 of my own. So it's Cotton, like Ralph's part of the family, but he's not my own, if that makes sense. These horses and dogs are literally my fur babies, as I said. So they think and I treat them as they're my children, so they think they're my kids and they are my kids. Obviously some people have different views, which is totally fun. I guess I could say that my first 2 fur children to join my little family were Ice and Gaiety girl. Now I believe Ice was first. So Ice is my lovely doggo. My very first, completely my dog, if they like. He was a border collie. Now, he originally came from a breed up in Nottingham. So Ice has beautiful bloodlines. When I got him, my mum also got his litter mate, Fire, although he doesn't get called that because obviously you can't go out shouting fire or someone will panic. So he gets called Red instead. Red instead. Might cause a few problems, but hey, it would be good for a laugh, wouldn't it? So Ice is blue male. If you follow any of my personal social media accounts, then you're bound to have seen many posts of him. Or he does have his own social media pages, which I haven't kept up on lately, which is very bad of me. I've had a social media cleanse, and I just post on my Facebook about what we get up to. It's just all in one instead of scattered, but I should get better at that, yes. But yeah, he has his own posts and accounts and everything. Yeah, so go like and follow or subscribe, whatever it is these days. So he is STILLMOOR ICE WARRIOR, if you're looking for him. Ice was a little different as a pup. So when I got him home, at one point he decided that he was above eating and drinking out of bowls. Don't ask me why, no idea. So he literally decided that the only acceptable way to eat or drink was from hand. Yeah, no idea. But thankfully he got over that quickly, because you can imagine how hard it was to hand feed water. Just saying. I did it and he enjoyed it, but only when needs must, Ice is the reason that I fell in love with the border collie breed. So when I wanted a puppy, I wanted the closest thing to a wolf I could have. So yeah, wolves naturally were my favourite animal at the time, which obviously meant I wanted a dog, and especially one close to a wolf. So when I was looking at dogs, I was thinking, I really want a husky. I always wanted a husky, because to me that was the most common type of dog that was closest to a wolf. But since then, I have heard of the Czechoslovakian wolf dog, who I think are absolutely stunning, by the way. But those breeds, and the huskies, Malamute, the Czechoslovakian wolf dogs, all of those Eskimo dogs and hardy dogs. They have a much higher prey drive, and I know you can train through it, but you know, I was kind of young, not extremely young, but fairly young, and I was still going to school, to college, secondary school, whatever it was. I hated school, as you can tell. But yeah, I was still off, so my mum would look after them through the day, and obviously she had her own dogs and her own jobs. But yeah, so Border Collie was much more suitable for my kind of lifestyle. They get to run around the farm and obviously looked after, but they didn't have to be constantly worked in order to stop them from prey drive. Obviously, you can have placid ones and chilled ones, but you know, couldn't take that chance. We had rabbits and stuff like that, so yeah, and we had like pet pheasants, not literal pet pheasants, but you know, we'd feed them and stuff. So yeah, we didn't really want a high prey drive dog for a child anyway. So my parents insisted I had a Border Collie because it was the right breed. So yeah, like I said, we had rodents, and we live on an equestrian yard as well. So anyways, I am in love with the way Ice turned out. He is literally my best friend and my little fur kid all in one. So Ice had been entire for 8 years. I'm bringing this up because there's actually some facts, but there's a reason I got him castrated, and I feel like it's a good thing to share. So he'd been entire for 8 years before I decided it was time to get the snip, which naturally changed him a little. So he was so docile. I originally didn't see a need to get him castrated at all, but he was getting older and the risk of testicular cancer increases, and when we got 3 bitches in the house coming in season, like one after the other, you know, he'd get a bit too sexually frustrated because he could smell them, which isn't nice for the poor boy. He would literally stay up at night just whining to try and, like, he didn't understand why he was feeling this way, I guess, because he'd never sired anyone. But yeah, no, he just whined, and when he was with them, obviously when we're around, he didn't try anything. He'd just like flirtatiously bounce around. Bless him. But obviously can't chance it. So because he was getting upset and he's staying up all night, and obviously the risk of testicular cancer, I did make the decision that it was time to get the snip. He's always been quite bouncy and flouncy in his stride. It's quite funny, but ever since he got castrated, he's even more bouncy. He boings around like, woo, what are we doing, mum? What are we doing, mum? Like, take a chill pill. Like, it's not fast, but yeah, he's just so happy. I guess you would be if you're not frustrated all the time. But yeah, he's much more bouncy. When he was castrated, I wouldn't say he was the happiest about it, but obviously he's happy now. His hair changed, his coat changed. And I'm doing my grooming course at the moment, so I'm currently a level 2 dog groomer assistant, and I'm going back to do my level 3 soon, so I can become an actual dog groomer. But anyway, so I naturally, having been learning about coat types and dogs' coats and things, you see a lot come through the salon. I noticed very quickly when Ice's coat changed. So he was really silky but fluffy, shiny but not greasy. That was his coat all the time when he was entire. It was long and it was gorgeous coat. But now that he's been castrated, he's still a gorgeous boy, of course, but it's more wispy. That's what I call it. Not the technical term, I'm sure, but it's wispy in terms of is more thin and it flicks out, and it doesn't sit like it used to. I wouldn't say it's dull, but it's definitely not as shiny as it was. He's on the same diet and everything, because I know diet can alter the coat, but he's on the exact same diet. And he put on a lot of weight, and that's not from the diet either. He had the same, in fact he's having slightly less now because he's not as active, and obviously the castration allowed I think it's to do with hormones that they put on more weight from being castrated. But yeah, so yeah, he's put on more weight, his coat's changed, and his attitude's changed. So I call them little Einstein hairs, the coat, by the way. That's a nickname, so I'm like hand plucking them out when they get too bad. But yeah, when they're on top of his head, I call them that his little Einstein hairs. And he gets really happy when I call them that, to be fair. It's so cute. So yeah, with hoopers, when I only do hoopers with him now, and some tricks. I don't do agility at all with him anyway. Yeah, so when I was doing hoopers, I could just tell him, I've done it with my eyes closed, with my back turned to him, and I'd just give him his cues and he'd do them beautifully. He was trained the old method of hoopers, like the old verbals, as I call them. But, you know, I could still work with them. They're not as good as Winter's cues now, but I work with them and they all work beautifully. But the thing is, now that he's been castrated, I can tell him exactly what I used to tell him. But I'd give him his away cue, which means like flick away from me and carry on travelling. And I'd be pointing right where the direction he's supposed to be going, and he'd go even wider and find out a load of other hoops, or do an away but the other way. And I'm just like, that's not really a way. But, you know, in his head it makes sense, and he's doing it really bouncy. He's like, Mum, look what I'm doing. So it's really cute. And I don't have the heart to tell him he's wrong. So I'm like, oh, good boy. I mean, I know that's bad on the training part, but, you know, we get there in the end. When I go into a hoopers competition, I just want him to have fun, you know. He is a veteran now in hoopers. So the next show we enter, he will be going in as a veteran. But yeah, he enjoys it, and that's why I do it. I don't do it because he's good, because he is good, but that's not why. Yeah. So anyway, Ice is the reason I went back to the same breeder years later and got his half-sister, Winter. He has done many trick/dog dancing displays and competes in hoopers to this day. He was actually very successful in hoopers. He is currently an improver, so I don't know if we'll be getting out of improvers for a while. Maybe now we're in veteran, who knows. He obviously just bounces and has fun, so that's really all we can ask for, isn't it? But yeah, I'm happy with him. Good little boy. Okay, so before we move on to my darling Winter, I do want to talk about Gaiety Girl. Gaiety Girl is a black Welsh Section D mare. She is quite nervous about most things in life, but I think she just likes her personal space, you know. I mean, who doesn't like their own personal space? You know, she accepts me. I would go as far as say she loves me in her own little way. But yeah, she's like, I tolerate you, Mum, which is her way of saying she loves me, I guess. Because other people, she's like, no. Don't, you can stay outside the stable, don't come in. No, thank you. I always picture her having a really posh accent, you know. I think she likes me because I accept that she like prefers her own kind of space. One thing about Gaiety Girl, or two, I guess, she hates poles and jumping. If you go and do road work with her, she hates freshly painted white lines or slow signs on the road. She's so funny. I tried to teach her jumping and poles, etc., over and over again, and I was doing repetitive work, so you know, I'd take her up to a jump or a pole, same either way. She'd see the pole, she'd be like, no, and she'd try and spin and not bolt, but like just like walk off then, but like a speedy walk. And yeah, she just kind of would spin and like act as if she was going to bolt, but wouldn't, obviously, because she's too good for that. But yeah, you'd have to persuade her over it, and when she went over it, she did then lunge over it rather than just potter over it. Once she did that a couple times, then she'd just go over it normally. And you think, okay, and then if you moved that pole a millimetre, oh my god, it's a completely different story. No. We have to go through the whole thing again and again and again. And you get to the end of the session, you'll be like, I think I got somewhere. And then you go in the next time, it could be the next day. That pole, exactly the same place, but she will not go near it again. I don't know why. She just has a thing about it. And after a while of trying again, I did the thing you shouldn't do, and I gave up. Not for a bad reason, but I just thought, do you know what? If she doesn't want to do it, then I am not going to force it. Because if I don't want to do something, I don't want to be forced to do it every day just because, you know, I'm her rider. I wanted to jump. She didn't want to jump. So we move on from that. You know, if it's your only horse, then fair enough. You kind of want to keep persisting with it because you don't. I am lucky enough to have multiple horses, so I can just say, no, she's just fine to be a happy hacker, and I'll do the jumping with the other one. I do have that luxury, and I understand if you don't, so I'm not judging at all. But yeah, so that was her thing, and you could say you could do schooling with her. I did for a little while, and then she also wasn't a big fan of that. She, like, I was trying to get her to bend and things, and she was just like, no, I'm a plank, I go straight, and that's about it. And I could get it. I worked on it a little bit, and I could get it. But I hate schooling, and I know it's so important, but I don't like it. Which we'll get back to later, because I have actually begun to like it now for a reason. But yes, I hated it in the first place. So there you go. I am now kind of quite fond of it, but I didn't like it in the beginning. So yeah, I was hacking wise, she's absolutely bomb-proof in traffic. You know, if we're walking along the road and there's a car coming, she will ignore the car, but if there's a piece of rubbish in the hedge, she'd like bend into the car for safety, and I'm like, no. She's never actually gone into a car, so don't worry. But yeah, she's absolutely bomb-proof in traffic, which is what you need really. To the point where we were coming around like a blind kind of corner, and there was this massive lorry hurtling round, and I was like, oh my god. So I just pulled the reins. I was like, we'll just wait here until it comes in sight, because I don't know what you're supposed to do really. I was like, we can peg it, but then it's just going to keep coming and not see us. So we just stood our ground, and I just held my hand up and not literally closed my eyes, but felt like I closed my eyes, and just held my hand and waited and prayed it would stop, or at least slow down. Because, you know, she is bomb-proof in traffic, but the other horses with us, and, you know, there is an instance that something could happen. You know, when I say she's bomb-proof, she has been. There's no reason she can't then come away from that and be naughty or be scared or whatever. But yes, so I was just holding my hand up, praying that this lorry and this driver would slow the hell down. And he caught sight of us, and he went, oh dear, nice one, and he slammed on those brakes, and Gaiety girl, just stood there while there was this massive lorry skidding sideways towards her. And then once it stopped, I thanked the lorry driver, apologised for the stop he had to make, and then trotted by so we didn't waste too much of his time. And yeah, that's how bomb-proof she is. She doesn't care if that lorry's skidding towards her. I was like, do we need to turn and go? Like, is this thing going to stop? But it did, thankfully. And she was just like, yeah, that's cool. Which is amazing. You know, people pay their weight in gold for a horse that's bomb-proof in traffic. And I agree, they have to be bomb-proof in traffic, because there's nothing more dangerous than traffic, because you can't control that. But yeah, so it's an important trait to have. Gaiety girl has also been given a nickname, which is Mare. Now, this needs a little bit of explaining. So, for some reason, I was telling her off as a joke. You know, I don't ever tell them off properly. I just jokingly go, oh, blah, 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 blah. Like, you don't actually do anything, so don't worry. I would call her Mare. So, Mare. I called her this because when I was little, I used to watch a show It was called Bear Behaving Badly, and there was an old man that used to try and catch the bear or something, and he'd go around going, "Bear!" and I like telling him off, and so now her nickname is Mare, and because she's a mare, and you know, why not? So it's become more of a cute nickname than an actual, like, oh, you're so naughty. My family even use it for her too now, so it's literally stuck. It's much less of a mouthful than Gaiety Girl, I suppose. But yeah, she's called Mare. Another thing about Gaiety Girl is that she used to belong to my mum. Gaiety Girl was my mum's birthday present a good few years ago now. But like, I think my mum had her from a yearling. But yeah, she's born in 2005, and now I own her. I've owned her for a long time. But yeah, so she was my mum's birthday present, and when I outgrew one of my old ponies, she gave me Gaiety Girl to borrow, I guess you could say. And naturally, as her daughter, I stole her. But it was, with my mum's permission to do so, when I kind of wore her down to the idea. But yeah, that's Gaiety Girl. Okay, so the third addition to my little family was Twizzle. Now, Twizzle is a black Welsh D gelding, and if you haven't noticed already, Welsh Section Ds are my favourite breed of horse. So yeah, I have two of them. So Gaiety Girl and Twizzle. Twizzle was from the Welsh Mountains. I remember my family going to pick him up. He was supposed to be my nan's birthday present one year. She wanted him to be trained and ridden by my mum. He was a stallion at the time. He had no respect for people, humans, the whole race. I wasn't supposed to go or get too close to him, but as a child, naturally, I wanted to see the new horse on the yard. So Twizzle, when he came to us, we had him castrated because my mum worked with him, and he was absolutely bonkers, you could say. He had no respect, and yeah, so we wanted to take a little bit of a chill pill. So yeah, he was castrated, and Mum began work with him. She started to get him to calm, and he still hated everyone. Everyone other than me, it seemed. So I gradually did more and more with him. My nan once saw me hanging out with him over his stable door. So if you know Twizzle, or you've heard of Twizzle, or how his antics, he does not like anyone near his stable at all. So me, like, bonding with him over his stable door was a big deal for Twizzle. So my nan saw it, and how he seemed to listen to me and not lunge and bite after that, she called me over and she's like, "Do you know what? He seems to have chosen you." I was like, "Oh, okay, yeah, okay." And she's like, "Do you want him?" And I'm like, What? And she's like, "Do you want him?" I'm like, "Yeah." So that was the start of mine and Twizzle's relationship. Well, the continuation of it, I guess, because he was being given to me. So that was an amazing feeling. So I'd already stolen Gaiety Girl, and now I've been given Twizzle. Him choosing me was the best feeling in the world. I was now his person, and woe betide anyone that comes near his mum. The first time he met my partner, he was really well behaved, considering he doesn't like people, especially men, apparently. And yeah, he was fine with Alan until Alan hugged me. And that was that. After he saw that, he pulled a face and was grumpy with him, and to this day, he is still grumpy with him, and Alan will not go in the stable with him. I go into a stable to get his hay net, and to do this, to this day, he still lunges at anyone. outside. Horses, dogs, people. If his mum's in that stable with him, no one is allowed near that stable. He is my eldest fur baby, my fur child, and by far the biggest baby ever. If it's raining, he'll just stand by the gate whinnying like, "Mum, come get me in." If I ride one of my other horses and it's not him, he gets in the biggest mood ever. Like, he's like, "That should have been me. No. And if it's Radley that I ride instead of him, oh my god, it's the end of the world. Like, he gets in the biggest strops with me. So it might be because Radley was the new addition to my riding horses, I guess, because Gaiety Girl was part of the family before Twizzle was. So that might have been it. Because he was like, no, I like to be ridden. But yeah, so who knows? But yeah, that's my little Twiz. He's very special. It's always nice when they are more needy, I find. Like, it's nice that they all love you, but the more needy ones are just cute, aren't they? Okay, so Domino and Babybel were my next two that I claimed. My family had bred both of them. They were the two last foals we've bred to date, I believe. So what happened was Domino had all of a sudden lost his eyesight, which is very sad, of course. The vet believes it was just genetical. So the vet was there, yeah, and she was just like, no, it's completely genetical. It is more common in spotted ponies, which is what he is. When he was a foal, I got to choose his name for him, and I picked Domino because at the time I was young and he was young, and he was brown all over but had like a few white spots covering his bum, so naturally Domino, duh. Once he went blind, obviously he needed even more care. My family were doing enough, and I just thought, he can come and be one of my fur kids. So he used to be turned out with a herd of horses, which he liked. They'd stay out all summer and loved it. But obviously, if those horses that he was turned out with ever decided to pick on the weakest in the herd, then poor little Dom wouldn't have been very happy. So because of this, unfortunately, that's, it is what most animals naturally do. They pick on the ones that show weakness. Luckily, I knew who he got on with well in the herd. So I informed my family that I would be happy to take on Domino and Babybel as my own. Taking on Babybel was the best thing for Domino. They share a stable and a paddock. I don't make them share because there aren't enough stables or anything. There are plenty. They share because he cannot see the other horses in the stables around him, and if he cannot touch her, he begins to panic, and she can be a little bit naughty because she's a miniature American, and she will break the paddock fence and go in with my big horses, which upsets Domino because he cannot find a way to get to her, and then he starts pacing up and down the paddock fence, winning his little head off. Babybel is cheeky. She's a cheeky little mare who just is adorable, but when he needs her, she can be a little bit too naughty. She can hear him whinny and she's like, eh. But the nice thing is, like, when they are together and she's not in one of those cheeky moods, like, you see her and him, it'll be so interesting to do a behavioural course on, but the way she helps him is phenomenal. Like, when I first turned them out into that paddock, they munched on us, like, they grazed on the grass, and then she, like, almost took him to the water trough, like, he needed a drink, so she took him, like, he, like, followed her, like, with his nose on her bum to the water trough, and then he drank, and then when he was done, she drank. It was really weird but beautiful to watch. Like, you don't think that would happen, but it did. You could say it's coincidence, but I put it down to naturally being helpful. They get on well, so why not? So when Babybel was a foal, she would literally, I'd sit cross-legged on the grass paddock ground, obviously, and she'd climb onto my lap and like just, yeah, why not? And I used to really like laugh and giggle because it was cute, and you know, I was younger as well, and I wish to still do it. I didn't keep it up, I guess. I did in fact use Babybel in my college course when I did Animal Management Level 3 Extended Diploma. I taught her to drive a cart, which was really fun. So I was long reining her, and it was really funny behind the scenes because when I was long reining her, I'd have this, but you really shouldn't try this at home because it wasn't the safest idea. But I was long reining her, and I had a belt, and I tied Domino to the belt so he could keep his nose on my back, which then he wouldn't panic. As long as he could touch her or me, he wouldn't panic. So obviously she was doing her thing up front in the long reins, and that meant he'd have to trail behind, bless him. But obviously for the videos and the content I had to put in the PowerPoints and stuff, I'd get my mum or my granddad to hold him at the side so he could still hear us, but you know, that's what we had to do. But yeah, it was, yeah, don't try it at home. It's probably not the safest thing, because if he did take fright and take off, I'd probably go with him. But yeah, he'd have to be touching either me or her for comfort. Right, so Radley, he is the newest horse to join the family. I bought him a few years ago now, and he is a good boy, to be honest. I'm surprised I picked a horse that is half thoroughbred, because they can be absolutely nuts. Some are placid. Radley, for example, is half thoroughbred, and he is most of the time quite placid. But to be fair with him, he is probably more lazy than he is anything else. He is really lazy, and I used to be annoyed about it. I would be like, come on, just try for me. But after having him be crazy, I'm kind of thankful when he is lazy, because I'd rather push a horse to go forward than have one that's being absolutely nuts in traffic or whatever. So yeah, I definitely prefer lazy Radley to nutty Radley. Bless him. So yeah, he is part thoroughbred and part Irish draft. I hope to do many things with him that I haven't ever done with my other horses. He is such a good lad, bless him, and yeah, I want to get out there more with him, because like Twizzle and Gaiety Girl literally is a happy hacker now, and Twizzle loves to jump, but he gets his legs in a little bit of a muddle. But yeah, Twizzle's brilliant at his own kind of freestyle schooling kind of thing. He'd love dressage. He'd go in there and tell everyone that he ought to win because he's just arrived, you know. He make up his own like moves. He doesn't need the ones that Allegro uses. He's much above that. But yeah, no, Radley, he's a good boy, and I'd like to do, you know, a little bit of dressage with him probably, just to get out there and doing it. But I'd like to do some show jumping and maybe even dabble in a bit of cross country. Who knows? So Winter, my lovely little girlie. Winter, as you know, is Ice's little sister, and she is exactly what I dreamed of having as my second dog. So Ice was exactly what I wanted as my first dog, and Winter is exactly what I wanted as my second dog. So what I wanted when I was looking for another dog was one which had all of Ice's good traits and all of one of my dad's dogs, Strider's, craziness. Because who doesn't like a little bit of crazy? And that is literally what she is. She is a whole load of crazy and a gem to own and live with. I have never seen a dog with such an off switch. You know, so she is completely crazy. You take her to a training area, you know, you see her eyes completely dilate, and you're like, oh my god, I know she's going to be crazy. She's going to be a crazy beastie today. Like, yeah, today I hadn't trained her for a week, and she came out and she was doing a whole course on her own. Like, I didn't even have to say anything, move, like, not the right course, granted, but she was making up her own as she went along. So yeah, if I don't train her a lot, she goes absolutely bonkers when she gets let loose. But yeah, for example, so this is what I mean by the off switch. When I was ill back along, and I was self-isolating, because I didn't want to make the rest of my family ill, she was more than happy to just sleep all day every day. Some nights when I get up to take the dogs out for a wee, and I can stand there for 5 minutes telling her, like, Winter, come on, we've got to go outside, come on, like, wee-wee's like, well, just come outside, and the response she'll give me, honestly, a look that literally reads, I can't be bothered, Mum, do I have to? Like, so lazy and laid back at home. I love it. She's, like I said, she's a dream to own, a gem. And I think it's a bit of a mood, to be fair. Like, I don't want to go toilet. I can't be bothered. I'll just wait until the morning. So Winter does adore doing her dog agility and her hoopers with me. And I love training her, to be quite honest. She has started learning some tricks too, but she doesn't always seem to have the time for them, you know. She doesn't have the time for the things that, you know, you have to think about and take a bit slower, because you have to think about them. No, she sees contacts in agility and she's like, nah, they're in my way. They're in my way of just running. And weaves, oh, they're so annoying. I have to slow down to get in them, and then when I'm in them, all the poles are in the way. She'd literally break the second weave pole every time because she wouldn't decel to get in them. Like, yeah. So now she's much better now, obviously, but she's still crazy, always will be, and I hope she is. Hopefully a little bit more listening wouldn't hurt though. No, yes, I'd like some more listening to her mum. Anyways, I hope you've enjoyed listening to me about my animals. I thought it might be nice to, you know, get to know your host a little bit better. You know, they are my life, and as you can see, I love them very dearly, and I know each one of them like the back of my hand. Better, in fact, probably. You know, I would love to hear about your animals' characteristics, so please don't be shy and leave them in the comments. Okay, so let's move on to the next topic of this episode. I wanted to talk about good horsemanship and bonds/relationships you as an owner, trainer or rider have with your animals. So I thought, to start this section off, I would get the actual definition of what horsemanship is from no other than Google Dictionary. The definition of horsemanship is, quote, the art or practice of riding on horseback, end quote. Which, yes, that is obviously correct, but there is much more to it, I believe, anyway. I guess this is like the very, very basics. I then went on to seeing what is classed as good horsemanship. So according to Britannica, I think that's how it's said. Anyway, so Britannica says that horsemanship is the art of riding, handling and training horses. I like this definition even more. It feels more inclusive of everything that goes into working with horses. Britannica's definition of good horsemanship requires the rider controls the animal's direction, gait and speed with the maximum effectiveness and minimum efforts. You see, I don't love the way this part is written. I get that they are trying to get across that the rider should be in more control, but I don't think that they're saying, like, it should be done with minimum effort, because I wouldn't say minimum effort is the right words to use. If you think about it, the amount of time, money and effort that goes into training a horse, and even training the handler or rider, I wouldn't say it should be effortless. You need to put in all your effort in order to receive the results you want. I think a better way of wording it would be to make it look effortless, because that is what I think judges in dressage look out for too. It shouldn't look like you are nagging the horse all the way around the test, but effortless and flowing. I also don't think it should focus as much on the rider, for example. In a showing environment, the one in control of the horse is the handler. Obviously, I'm talking about in-hand showing because ridden classes, then they are classed as riders again. My personal views on great horsemanship isn't about what you can get the horse to do for you. I think before you can get to that, there is so many important stages that I know not all handlers and riders will actually consider, which is sad. But I think the bond between handler or rider and their horse is essential. Why should a horse work within a partnership with you if you don't consider his/her feelings or welfare, etc.? For example, as I mentioned with my own horse Gaiety girl earlier, when she showed me how much she didn't want or like jumping, I didn't make her continue to stress over the poles. I accepted that she just didn't want to, and instead what we do is something together that she does enjoy. Yes, I originally wanted her to jump, but I also cared for her more than my own wants and needs, and I didn't want her to go through the battle of the poles every session, the battle of the poles. But yeah, I didn't want to have to go through that, and to be quite honest, she was stressed, I was getting stressed, and it wasn't worth it to me. Anyway, like I said earlier, if you only have one horse, then it's not as easy it's easy for me to sit here if I've got more, because I've got more than one horse. But I am not saying that you should let your horse get away with everything, though, so please don't take that away from this. What I am saying is that you have to consider why they are reacting like this. Are they scared, or are they just being cheeky? It's just simple. So if they're scared, comfort them. Why not? But equally, if they're just being cheeky, then ride them through it. When out hacking, I try not to canter on stone or road or hard tracks. I believe it's bad for their joints. It's scientifically proven it's bad for their joints. I'm not trying to tell anyone how to ride or care for their horses, but I'm just saying that some of the things I consider when out riding or caring for my horses, I don't want their joints getting weakened or damaged, or them being put through pain. A bond between you and your horse or dog will only make your experience better, because it will mean more to you, and I can almost guarantee it makes life so much easier and happier once you have this friendship. For example, Radley loves to bully me playfully. My riding instructor said it's because he sees me as his human, which always makes me smile, because it's nice to be someone's special. I will tell you what though, me and my horses have such a crazy strong bond that I only have to think things sometimes and they will start doing them. Now, in some situations this can be a problem, but most of the time it's just beautiful to witness and be a part of. Twizzle and I's bond is so strong that we both know what the other is thinking before we even have thought it through, it seems. I have a strange little story for you all, actually, about Twizzle. Now, I like to believe that our pets understand what we say, if your bond is strong enough, of course. I don't particularly mean they understand the English language, but they have a level of understanding that works off of a strong bond and the amount of time you both have spent together. So, I was mucking out Twizzle's stable with him munching at his hay net. I take out the wasted hay that is under his net when I muck him out, but for some reason I had a feeling that he might like to keep it. I don't know why it came over me, but anyways, I then proceeded to ask him, do not think I'm crazy. No, that's not what I said, but do you want me to leave that? Was the question I asked him, and he looked at me in the corner of his eye and then nodded his head and went from eating the hay net to then eating his hay off of the floor first. So basically he was telling me that he was going to eat that haylage on the floor, that I didn't need to take it out. Now, I don't care if it's not scientifically possible or whatever, but I'm choosing to believe it, so leave me alone. So with sportsmanship, when competing or even in training, I think it is important to consider your horse or dog, or the other competitors, in fact, because I hate when people start being snooty or plain rude. There is just no need for it. Like, you be nice to your horse and you be nice to the people around you, and if you are rude or snooty, if anything, it just shows you up, because you're either jealous or insecure, or you're worried that the other person's going to beat you. So yeah, just don't do it. Just be nice. Just be nice. I personally don't care how much you have spent on your horse or dog. Mine has the same opportunity to be just as good. It's about the training and not the price tag. I think friendly competition is healthy. For example, my parents and I go competing in dog agility together. If one of us goes clear, we jokingly tell the other that they had better not beat us. I think it's nice to have a bit of friendly banter between yourself and friends. You know, we're always like, oh, like, we've gone clear, we better hope no one else does. You know, it's just friendly stuff, and we would never actually wish any bad on anyone. We just, you know, we're proud of our doggies and we want them to be shown that they have done well. You know, it's nice to receive a rosette or whatever, but it's also nice to just have friendly banter and enjoy yourself and let your dog and horse enjoy itself. It's not always about winning or the rosettes or the trophies. It's about having fun. So maybe in a future episode I can get some questionnaires and answer them and see how easy it is to answer questions about my animals. Perhaps I could get a co-host in to ask me some of these questions so there is no cheating. Okay, it's been really nice to catch up with you all. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. Please remember, I look after my animals the way I do. I'm not saying you should look after yours the same. But yeah, that's just my beliefs. Obviously, each to their own. I'd never, ever go out my way to make someone feel uncomfortable about how they look after theirs. But yes, I would be very grateful if you could comment how much you enjoy spending time with your animals and what you get up to, and also, you know, share what you think a good bond is with your animal. I'll catch you next time. Bye.